Yes, it is I, the one and only Nickolye, and I am joined once again by my co-host, KingJ.
The King has arrived.
And the Royal Rumble is arriving very quickly. It is almost here. It is tomorrow night, and even though WWE likes to give us additional matches to fill up the card at the very last minute, I'm still excited just because it's the Royal Rumble. It's one of my favorite pay-per-views, as many other people. Let me ask you, KingJ, are you excited for the Royal Rumble this weekend?
I am excited for the Royal Rumble this week. I don't know what it is, but every year at the Royal Rumble, even if the matches on the card suck, I'm always excited for that big Rumble match to see who comes back, who eliminates who, what the next feud's going to end up being. The Royal Rumble is such an important pay-per-view, not just for the road to WrestleMania, but it's one of the most unpredictable nights in this business.
Not to mention exciting. I mean, there's so many elements within the Royal Rumble. It's, like you said, the big surprise entrance. Who returns? Who makes an appearance? What feuds develop after this? And most of all, who wins the Royal Rumble? I mean, it always has that level of anticipation. As soon as the countdown begins, you're on the edge of your seat. You're excited for whoever comes out, comes back, returns, what have you. And not only that, but there's some big talent, that have returned just for the Rumble, just for the chance to be the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. And there's still couple of storylines going into this, but what comes out of it is what I'll definitely be interested in. I already know one feud that'll come out of it, but we'll get to that when we get to that. So, first things first, SmackDown, the final stop before the Royal Rumble. What did you think of this week's episode?
So much better than last week. So much action. This was more of a quick promo and shut up and fight. That's what the SmackDown before the Royal Rumble needs to be.
Hell yes. This had a lot of important stuff happen. Nothing too dramatic or drastic or game-changing, so to speak. It was just straight to the point. Only one segment dedicated to a long promo, and match after match after match. No authority except for Kane. No Randy Orton. No John Cena. No Daniel Bryan. No big long segments after segments after segments. We had a total of 7 matches. So they're really giving us some things to look forward to in the Royal Rumble match. Now, we started off with the Real Americans versus Ray and Big Show. And we're kind of going to go through this a little quick because we are going to talk about the Royal Rumble pay-per-view after this. This is another meeting of the two teams. I really wasn't expecting to see Big Show and Ray team back up. I don't know why. Don't ask me. It just caught me off guard when it was announced on Raw. But this match turned out better than I had expected. It actually made me a little excited. Big Show showed a lot of aggression at the start of the match. I mean, he was just dominant and had no signs of weakness because he's clearly focused on Brock Lesnar at the Royal Rumbles. What did you think of this match here?
This was so different from any other time that the Big Show and Rey Mysterio have teamed up. Big Show was angry. Rey was his normal Mucho Lucha self. And they fought against a very angry team in the Real Americans after what Big Show did to Zeb Coulter last week by knocking him out with the KO punch. But the Big Show turned up his intensity to a level that we haven't seen since he tried to throw Kurt Angle off of a balcony years ago. Yeah, I went there. But he did like a curb stomp / blackout to Antonio Cesaro at one point during the match. And I was like, Dad, the Big Show really is angry. He's trying to break people's neck.
Yeah, he was really focused, and Big Show and Ray got the win. Paul Heyman showed up after the match and basically advocated for his client Brock Lesnar that even though Big Show stuffed a takedown attempt on Raw and threw him clear over the top rope, he said that Brock beating Big Show will not be enough. He will suffer, and Lesnar will conquer the WWE Universe. You know, typical Heyman promo. Big Show had no rebuttal. He just was seething in the ring. And there's one big feud going into the Rumble right there.
And you know what the thing I like about this time around, the feud between the two of them? Brock doesn't have to appear to make this feud. Like, it's more so been his little instances of appearing, getting thrown around by Big Show. It's kind of like, oh crap, the Big Show is kind of a threat, regardless of how you feel about him. But it's more so Heyman and Big Show making the feud, as far as the verbal back and forth goes. And that shows you how effective of an advocate, manager, PR person, however you want to look at Paul Heyman. It shows how important he is to this feud and to Brock Lesnar being an entity on WWE television.
Mm-hmm. Now, the next match was admittedly the worst part of SmackDown, or the worst match of SmackDown, but it wasn't all bad, because Bad News Barrett was at his best. You know, just delivering bad news and taunting The Miz mostly, but also Brodus Clay. He said that the Royal Rumble is, or the main event is going to be a 10-man tag match. It's, you know, could be a main event match in any era, which is true because there's so many generations in that match alone that we'll get to in a minute. And then he says the next match, which is Brodus Clay versus Miz, is going to be one of the worst matches in WWE history. And I don't know if he was being prophetic or if they literally booked it like that, but this match really was bad. It was the worst match of the night, yet Wade Barrett taunting and talking throughout the match was a thumbs up plus for me.
Can he do that in every boring match?
Can he do that in every Brodus Clay match?
See, look, I'm trying to be nice to Brodus this week. I don't know why, but I decided I was going to be nice to Brodus because he really ain't got nothing to look forward to. But
that's being nice.
You know me. You know I could have said a lot worse than that. But no, this match was literally a kick to the knee and a DDT. Mm-hmm. That's all I remember from it, besides Bad News Barrett saying, Miz is awful, and banging the gavel.
Miz is awful.
And the crowd even started chanting it. So, albeit it was a short-lived chant, but they were even like, okay, this match really is awful. I mean, it's Brodus Clay and The Miz. Not saying either one of them is horrible, but, I mean, really?
Listen, even, and I'm sure you didn't just say really by coincidence over there, but, I mean, The Miz said it himself. He doesn't even know his role right now. And I'm not stealing a Rock line over there. He literally doesn't know if he's a face or a heel. He said it before, and he's not trying to be a good guy. He's not trying to be a bad guy. He's just, you know, he's being himself, which is a usual dickish attitude. But, I mean, the crowd doesn't even know how to take it. The crowd doesn't know whether to cheer him or boo him. And as a result, WWE doesn't even know where to place him in matches. I mean, one week he'll face Kofi Kingston, the next week he'll face Curtis Axel.
And you see, that's the thing, because when he comes out, depending on who he's facing, the crowd will cheer him. But then they're like, but is he a face or is he a heel or is he just being himself and WWE's trying to figure out where he's going? So I guess they say if we put him in a feud with Barrett, who's clearly a heel, even though he is kind of speaking the truth on a lot of things.
Don't they all?
True. But but maybe this could be a way to portray him as a face if we want to keep him as a baby face. But right now, Wade is kind of in limbo himself because apparently he's no longer in the Royal Rumble, which I'm confused about. But
well, in all honesty, that does remain to be seen. I mean, how many times have we heard somebody's not in the Rumble and bam, there they are?
Well, the only person we know officially who isn't in the Rumble is Brock Lesnar, whoever is going to be the WWE World Heavyweight Champion after that match, and
Justin Gabriel.
Yeah. Okay, can Papa I know we ain't talking about the Rumble yet, but I want to see the Godfather or Papa Shango in one of his gimmicks. I want to see him.
Hmm.
I'm on the same page as Wade Bear. I want to see him appear every year.
Well, moving along, we had a Divas match, which was better than the previous one. AJ Lee versus Cameron. And Cameron held her own. She did good. AJ got the win off the Shining Wizard, as she should, because it's one of her finishing moves. It's not always a Black Widow. And after the match, we saw Naomi and AJ get into a brawl.
Before we get into that brawl, Cameron did amazing. She really took it to AJ. She showed that she could play up her character of being this sassy diva. She showed that she could go out there, she could fly, she could throw some hits on AJ. And I think it was beneficial because they're both the same height and they both move fairly fast. So they could be like, all right, well, let's do this. And then when Tamina looked like she was about to get involved, Naomi was about to be like, we ain't having this. But Cameron took care of it. Like, Cameron showing that she can kind of hold her own. And then when we got to that brawl, Naomi took it to some chicks.
Listen, I'll say this. I was not that impressed with Ariane, okay? Back in the revival of Tough Enough, I did not like her. She came off as... She thought she was, too good. Thought she was deserving of being a diva. And even as recently as Total Divas, Ariane can get on my nerves sometimes. She has this attitude. She, thinks that what she does is the best, or I think she just gets in her own head.
Yeah.
But Cameron is a professional. She does her job well. She plays his character well. Whenever she had promo segments with the Bella Twins, or even just simply with Naomi, like, she was always on cue, on point. And in the ring, she has improved increasingly and dramatically. She held her own in this match. It was, I would say, even though it was short, it was one of her best matches. Singles matches.
Yeah. It was definitely really good. And to your point about when she first showed up on Tough Enough and Ariane was very full of herself and confident and everything like that, it could rub people the wrong way. Like, she was that type of chick where you were like, okay, I can only take her in small doses. And there has to be other people there to diffuse the situation. Because she might have a bottle smash over her head at the end of the night. And as she progressed and became Cameron down in FCW and then came to the main roster, it was like, okay, I could give this girl a chance. And then Total Divas came around and you realize you could take her in some doses. Like, sometimes she was too over the top with, like, her catchphrases and everything, but she's really kind of created her own little niche in a way, where Naomi is known as the very athletic one. Cameron's the talker. Like, if you need a promo cut, Naomi can jump in with her couple of things, but Cameron shines through. And now she's starting to shine through in the ring. So she's coming along very well. Agreed. And I think wrestling against the Divas champion was a way to showcase that, even though she did end up losing.
Which is perfectly fine, because it was the champion after all.
Right. And you don't want everyone to pick up a win over the champion, regardless of who it is.
Exactly. Speaking of surprising wins, because AJ winning was not surprising, the following match had a surprising victory. Ryback and Curtis Axel defeated Los Matadores, which, in my recollection, is their first loss for the Spanish/Mexican tag team. This one shocked me. Honestly, I thought Los Matadores were going to win because they've been winning matches all over the place, but yet they can't win all the time. But at the same time, when was the last time Curtis Axel and Ryback got a win as a tag team? I almost thought that they had split and that they weren't teaming up anymore. And then when they won, it caught me off guard. So
the last time they won as a tag team was a couple weeks ago on SmackDown when they pinned Cody and Goldust.
And never got a reward after that. How sad.
No, but such is life. Ryback went around the ring, talking to himself like a crazy person, and Curtis Axel did something.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Thank you. Well, El Torito did something, but it was after the match. He gave Axel a Hurricane Rana and hit a crossbody on Ryback from the top rope to the floor, and that was it. I mean, this was a little stupid here. I mean, I love Los Matadors and El Torito. They're the new comedy spots of WWE right now, since Santino is still hurt.
Which I don't mind, actually. I
Right.
don't mind the fact that they're used sort of in a comedic role with El Torito, because it's giving these guys something to do. And
the kiddies love them.
yeah. And what more do you want from a babyface tag team? You want the crowd to interact with them, love them, embrace them, and be like, okay, these guys are cool. They might be a little flash in the pan gimmick, but we don't know, because we've said that about other things and it's progressed and the people are still there. Like a Damien Sandow, people thought like, okay, he's going to be here for 6 months and then be gone. Dolph Ziggler, we thought the same thing. He's still around. He's up and down in limbo a lot of times, but he's still there regardless. So, hell, even to Fandango.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned Dolph Ziggler, because this is a perfect segue. He is out right now because he suffered a concussion from Ryback at a house show off of a clothesline. I mean, Ryback hit his lariat, his meat hook lariat, I think it was, and it was too stiff. Dolph Ziggler was, he got legit hit and hurt off of it, and he's been out with a concussion injury. Now, I recently watched a video where Ziggler and The Miz were in Cleveland, and the Ziggler said that all his tests are coming back positive. He's doing better. His impact testing is positive, and it's just a matter of time for him to get back in the ring. The big question is, will he be cleared for Sunday at the Rumble? He says he will be there, but that's as far as up in the air as he left it. He didn't say that he's in the Rumble. He just said that he will be there on Sunday. So, I hope Ziggler gets a speedy recovery, not too fast, but I mean, you look at Daniel Bryan, and he had a speedy recovery when, he suffered a concussion a couple of weeks ago. And he's going to be in a match at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. So, basing off of that, we'll segue into the next match, which was the Wyatt family, see the segue there, took on and squashed the Primetime Players, which this was needed, in my opinion. They needed to just basically destroy the Primetime Players, because they haven't destroyed a tag team in a while. And honestly, nothing against the PTPs, but they haven't done anything lately.
Well, they're working on a show for WWE Network, so
they need to work on getting the tag team titles.
This is true too. But the tag team division is so fierce right now. You gotta pick a spot and take it. Yeah. But they didn't kill the Primetime Players. They killed Darren Young.
Yeah.
This might as well have been a handicap match, because Titus got no offense. Titus just stood there on the rope until he got knocked out by Luke Harper.
and I loved that spot, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just jump in just real quick. Harper, tagged in. Eric Rowan, it looked like Rowan was going to toss Harper into Darren Young in the corner, but they switched it up, and Harper threw Rowan to boot Titus O'Neil square in the face. And I love that little tease, that swerve on us right there.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you know what? I feel bad for the Primetime Players because I'm such big fans of theirs. But even when they're squashed, they're still impressive. Because they don't ever give up. Like a tag team, you're like, okay, they're going to lose, obviously, because this person has something big going on. But they still fight and try and get in offense, even though they know they have to get killed. It's all about like what JR and all these old school veterans say. You got to pick your spots. Even if you're supposed to die, you still need to look like you can do something.
Yeah. We had a in-ring promo from CM Punk, who was advertised to address Kane, which, I mean, he briefly did, but he went on this long rant about the authority and their hidden agenda when they made him the number one entrant, and the fact that that doesn't scare him off. He says that it makes him more motivated to win the Rumble, high, headline WrestleMania and win the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Listen, this is nothing new to CM Punk, okay? He was number one before. People might forget that. He was the number one entrant in the Royal Rumble 3 years ago in 2011. I was there in Boston. It was CM Punk, and he was the leader of the New Nexus. And that's when New Nexus and the Core had this big brawl before the Rumble even started. When they finally cleared the ring, it started as CM Punk number one and Daniel Bryan number two. CM Punk lasted over half the Royal Rumble until he was eventually eliminated by John Cena, who was number 22. So think about that. That's how long CM Punk has been in a Rumble match. Him being number one this year is no different.
Exactly. And is it crazy that technically he's been with the WWE for 10 years?
I know, it's insane. I mean, you really don't realize how long someone's there until you go back and relive their debut. I mean, I recently watched CM Punk's Best in the World DVD or documentary. I mean, because I watched it on Netflix, and I mean, you go back and watch all his old stuff. It's like, wow, I can't believe I forgot that he has done all this stuff. It just feels like he's only been there for 5 years, but it's almost been 10.
Right, and I think that's one of the crazy things, because you don't realize how long some people have actually been in the WWE. Like Kofi Kingston's actually been there a long, long time. Like he's been there since DSW.
Damn.
So it kind of like puts things in perspective, because after Punk had said that on SmackDown in an interview that I watched his earlier, I was like, wait, you've been there that long? And then like I went back and I'm like, wait, but this guy's been there about the same amount of time. Like, it's kind of crazy.
And throughout this promo, Punk says that he's gonna walk straight to the Lion's Den, look him straight in his eye, punch him in his stupid face, and throw him over the top rope along with 29 other men. CM Punk is literally the only guy besides number 2 who can say he will outlast 29 or 29 other men, because I hate when people win the Royal Rumble, say if they started at number 25, and they say that I eliminated 29 other men. No, you didn't. You probably eliminated only 4 and had the luck of the draw. I'm sorry, but I tend to be literal sometimes, and when you say things like that, it just doesn't make sense. CM Punk can make that claim if he does go all the way.
Right. And you know what? I was actually thinking, I wouldn't mind if Kane wasn't in the Rumble, but if he so-called provided a distraction for CM Punk to like allude to the fact that he's not going to win the Rumble, but like the New Age Outlaws or the Shield are the ones who attempt to throw Punk out off of the distraction by Kane.
Mm-hmm. I have to retract a previous statement I said. I said Daniel Bryan wasn't there. He actually was there on SmackDown. I almost forgot. It was right after the Wyatt family had their match. Bray Wyatt took out Darren Young with Sister Abigail and gave a promo saying that he's not just going to defeat Daniel Bryan, he's going to hurt him, and then he's going to change the world. Daniel Bryan did come out. He was there, and he says that the crowd doesn't fear fate. They don't fear the Reapers. They're not burning with the Saints. And Bryan said that Bray Wyatt will be trapped in a prison of his madness, and they'll find out who the real monster is. So, nice little segment, post-match segment to lead into their feud at the Royal Rumble. I almost forgot about that.
Mm-hmm. It was a very good segment. I just love the way Bray Wyatt cuts a promo. Because if you first hear it, it kind of seems like it's scatterbrained all over the place. But he's very deliberate with the words that he chooses to use.
Yeah. Just briefly, Kofi Kingston defeated Fandango in the next match. We had we saw Emma in the crowd. She was holding a hashtag Emmalution sign. Any thoughts on this match or Emma, besides Emma and Summer Rae in the same segment?
Summer Rae looked amazing as always. She lost on NXT this week, which was kind of sad, but she looked great even in losing. Emma looked good. Why do I have a feeling, because she keeps popping up in Fandango segments and Diva segments, why do I have a feeling that they're going to have her and Summer Rae feud?
I have no clue. I could not answer that.
I just have this gut feeling that they're going to have the two of them go at it at some point, like early on when she debuts. Because Summer saw her in the crowd and she's like, really? You're here? And started laughing at Emma being in the crowd. She's like, you're in the crowd, I'm actually here. And people see me all the time. So, I don't know. I just think that's probably going to be one of her first feuds.
And they had the camera on her for a while, too. On Emma. Earlier in the show, the Shield cut a promo. And, typical, I'm going to win the Rumble. Well, okay. It wasn't that typical. Because Dean Ambrose started off by saying 27 other superstars will enter the Rumble with hopes and dreams and aspirations of headlining WrestleMania. But this year, it's not like that because the Shield is in the Rumble. And Rollins says that any superstar who steps through the ropes renders themselves a casualty. Roman Reigns took it a step further by saying, after all that, the big dog here, meaning himself, is going to win the Royal Rumble match. And he got some brief, dirty looks from Dean Ambrose. And Rollins, I couldn't tell if he was looking at Reigns or Ambrose, but I love the slight little hint of tension that there possibly could be, but you just never know because they don't go into it.
Right. I think that's one of the best parts about the Shield is you can sense the dissension, you can sense all this tension between the three of them because they all have egos, but they keep it in check. Now, what's said behind closed doors, quote unquote, that's a different story. But when they're on screen, there's not much debate.
Right.
So, we're still a cohesive unit, even if we ain't all getting along. So, I like that part.
And it makes you really wonder what will happen in the Rumble match.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have our main event, 10-man tag team match. Main event on SmackDown. The Shield teamed up with the New Age Outlaws, and by the way, all three of those guys must be beaming with joy with the fact that they get to team with the legendary New Age Outlaws. I mean, that's incredible. And they took on the Usos, Big E Langston, Cody Rhodes, and Goldust, which when you look at this on paper, you could draw lines from each side and connect the feuds because it was just crazy. I mean, you got Rollins and Reigns who have feuded with the Usos a long time. Dean Ambrose has feuded with Big E Langston for a while. Cody Rhodes and Goldust have they have to defend their tag team titles against the New Age Outlaws at the Rumble. They've also defeated the Shield at Battleground and then 8 days later won the tag team titles from them. I mean, there's just so many connections to this 10-man tag match. And
don't forget, Rollins beat Big E Langston on Raw. Yeah,
that's right. He pinned him. So, Big E doesn't lose that often. And Rollins got the victory over him in a 6-man tag match, which is also a rehash of this. I mean, you have Cody Rhodes, Goldust, and Big E took on the Shield on Raw. So, there's more lines that could be drawn for the battle. This match was just top notch. It was really good. It ended with a big fight. The ref just called for the bell. There was no official announcement on, any particular winner. So basically, it's thrown out. The match was thrown out. It's no contest. You could look at it as a faces won because all the heels rushed the ring and whatever. That's not the point. The point is this started off really hot, really good. Everybody had a chance to have a match. Cody Rhodes was beat down for most of it. He was playing face in peril. But the end, oh my god, the sequence of events, wow.
So fluid. It was so hard to keep up with it. It's okay, who's the legal person? Because everybody's hitting their spots right now. So this is close to ending. Roman Reigns and that spear on Big E Langston, I swear he broke
Ooh.
Big E Langston in half.
Wow, that was a cutter spear. I mean, like, we saw Goldust pull out a jumping Hurricane Rana. I mean, he didn't like climb up on someone's shoulders. He leapt off the turnbuckle onto Billy Gunn and did a Hurricane Rana. And then after that, all hell broke loose. And I actually have to go back to the recap that's on AngryMarks.com and read it from there. I mean, Seth Rollins hit the springboard knee strike that he started off doing, which is always good. Then we saw Big E hit a big clothesline. You mentioned Roman Reigns with the spear. The Usos came in with a super kick and a superfly splash. Billy Gunn, trips up one of the Usos and hits the Famouser. Cody Rhodes with a disaster kick. Road Dogg with the pump handle slam. Haven't seen him do that in a long time. And then that's when all hell broke loose. All 10 men started fighting in the ring. The locker room emptied out into a big brawl in the ring. It's the Royal Rumble season. I'm excited. How about you?
Hell yeah. See, this is how SmackDowns before the Rumble have to end. This is the one time a year where that huge, crazy brawl makes the most perfect ideological sense. Because it's everybody for themselves, and most of the names who are entered in the Rumble who are at SmackDown went out there and threw down like no other.
There was nobody holding back. CM Punk was the last man to show up, and he's just like, you know what? The hell with it. I'm joining in. I'm going out there. I'm fighting. I'm punching somebody. And the first person I see him fighting, Seth Rollins of the Shield. CM Punk has not forgotten about them. He went straight for them, and I can't wait for the Royal Rumble.
This is the first Rumble in a while that I've actually been excited going into. Like, regardless of, like I said earlier, the overall pay-per-view, the Rumble match itself, it feels like there's so much more emphasis on that match in of itself this year. Because you have Batista back, you have Brock Lesnar back, even though he's not participating in the match, but he's still there, and that's a huge looming factor. You have the Shield is actually in the Rumble this year. Right. Punk is starting number 1. All these guys who are actually announced in the Rumble so far have had issues with one another at some point. The big key players, like the Family, like the Shield, like Punk, like Rey Mysterio, the Rhodes, the New Age Outlaws are probably going to be in the Rumble too.
And the Shield weren't in the Rumble last year. We mentioned that before.
Mm-hmm.
This year they are. So this is all going to be interesting. And why don't we just go ahead and talk about the pay-per-view itself? I mean, we have 5 matches scheduled. That's including the Rumble itself. But one match is on the pre-show, the kickoff, and that is the Brotherhood, Goldust and Cody Rhodes. They will defend their tag team championship against the New Age Outlaws. Also on the kickoff show, the panel will be Ric Flair, who won the WWF championship in the Rumble back when it was on the line. Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the first man to ever win the first ever Royal Rumble match. Mm-hmm. And you have Shawn Michaels, a 2-time Royal Rumble winner. One of those times was from the number 1 spot. A really good lineup of a panel. I mean, they actually have 3 of the more important guys that you could have on a Royal Rumble panel. The only man that would be missing is Stone Cold, who is a 3-time Rumble winner.
Yep.
This match itself, the tag team title match, who do you have in a scenario of going over in this?
You know what? I wouldn't be mad if the New Age Outlaws won, but I don't see them winning. I just see them being an obstacle and roadblock for the Rhodes brothers. Because I see them eventually losing those belts to quite possibly the Wyatts. So either way, I wouldn't be mad at either team winning. But I do think if the New Age Outlaws win the tag team titles, it's going to be a what are we doing here now?
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to be that next? Because the whole landscape changes, basically. Because the Rose brothers would be chasing titles again. The Usos will have a new tag team to feud with. The Wyatts, all of a sudden, them, the Real Americans, and Roman and Zeth, are they going to feud with a heel tag team all of a sudden? It's that whole dynamic changes. So I see the Rose brothers retaining after a pretty lengthy match.
Well, the way I would see it, and this is only my predictions, my speculations, if the New Age Outlaws happen to win the titles, they need to drop it the next night on Raw, and I'm going to keep saying this until it happens, WWE, put it on the Usos. I mean, it would make sense because of the match that we saw on SmackDown in the main event. They had a chance to wrestle each other in the 10-man tag, but I would say that Goldust and Cody need to retain the titles and win the match. I mean, how crazy is it that in 2014 we are seeing Goldust and the New Age Outlaws wrestling each other again on TV?
It's such a surreal thing, because for the longest time, never thought it would happen. Like, Goldust, he had been pitching for years. Yeah, I want to come back. I want to feud with my brother. And they bring him back in such a different light. They have him and Cody team up to save their jobs, save their father's job. And they end up becoming tag team champions. And they're so beloved by the crowd because of how they were reintroduced that way. And it's put a new importance on both of them. On the New Age Outlaws, like, you thought, like, okay, they would show up for like a DX segment on like an old school Raw, or if WWE wanted to give us like that little funny haha moment, have Shawn Michaels and Triple H come back out there with the New Age Outlaws. But you never actually thought for one single solitary second that the New Age Outlaws would come back and wrestle on a concurrent basis and be put into a storyline feud.
They have been on Raw and SmackDown every week since Old School Raw on the first Raw of January. For basically 3 weeks, we've seen the New Age Outlaws in matches. That's insane.
It is, and it's something that is so unexpected. And I think that's part of the reason why I love it. The fact that you could have something like this happen and nobody really expected. And it's a welcome surprise, too. It's kind of like part nostalgia and part, okay, these guys can still go, so why not let them have a spot on the roster? Now, regardless of whether you look at it as them taking away from somebody else having the feud, this is progressing so many different things. It's progressing the tag team division, that an old school tag team wants to come back and get a tag team title for another run. It's also speaking to the authority angle in all of this.
Right.
Triple H is bringing back two of his former friends and tag team partners in different instances and be like, hey, I need you guys to come rein some people in.
And not only that, but they're working against the baby faces this time, so that's also changed around. Let's just give our quick predictions. Big Show versus Brock Lesnar. Who do you have going over?
Brock.
Yeah, Brock needs to win. Big Show has been dominant. Brock, every time he comes back, he always has a win-loss record. He needs to win this just to be dominant. Daniel Bryan versus Bray Wyatt. I'm going to say Daniel Bryan. Who do you got?
You know what? I'm torn in this one.
Yeah.
Because I want to see Bray Wyatt win. And I can actually come up with a logical reason why he wins. Daniel comes out there. He's a huge ball of fire. He's out there going crazy, unleashing this proverbial beast that he and Bray have both been alluding to in past weeks. And he becomes so unhinged that gives Bray the opening that he needs to just hit the Sister Abigail real quick and pick up a victory.
Now,
but on the same token, I can see Daniel Bryan getting dominated, giving as good as he's getting, and end up finally overcoming the beast that is Bray Wyatt.
Now, do we see Luke Harper and Eric Rowan hanging out at ringside?
I don't think they'll come with him at ringside, but they'll make an appearance at some point.
Okay. Now, as far as the next two, they're the more important matches. I'd say we kind of combine them. Who do you think will win the Royal Rumble match, and who do you think will win the WWE World Heavyweight Championship match? I think, first off, Randy Orton retains the title here. Him as a double champion heel, or undisputed champion. I think it just works for him all the way through WrestleMania. That's usually how they do it anyways. I still stick to my guns that CM Punk will probably win the Royal Rumble, just because of how many instances he has thrown around to the Authority. We see Randy Orton constantly hanging around the Authority, the face of the WWE. A big feud with Punk is oncoming. I mean, how much longer can we see him talk trash about Triple H and Kane? Which, by the way, I think Kane will be a surprise entrant in the Rumble and try to eliminate Punk. But I think that's as far as that goes. I mean, Batista came back, but he's not going to win the Rumble. He'll develop a feud with Alberto Del Rio. They'll probably have a match at Elimination Chamber. Roman Reigns, I see him having a strong presence in the Rumble, just like he did at Survivor Series when he speared and eliminated 4 out of 5 men. He will have a bunch of eliminations in the Rumble itself, but that's really as far as I can predict on anything in this. I'm gonna say CM Punk wins the Rumble. He hasn't yet.
You know where I see it ending up? I see the final two being Batista and Punk. I really, really see them being the ultimate final two.
That's interesting.
I don't know, because if you look at Batista, they're not just going to bring him back, have him participate in the Rumble, and him not be in the top 2 or 3. Like, it's not like he's going to be in there, and then all of a sudden, Fandango's going to pull a Maven and throw him out the ring like he did The Undertaker.
Oh, hell no.
Like, I don't see that happening. Like, my top 5 would end up being Batista, Punk, either Roman or Biggie Langston, or hell, both of them. And then quite possibly one of the guys who loses a match earlier in the night and ends up, like, if Cena loses, he could possibly make a pop-up appearance in the Rumble and be that 5th guy.
So, who do you think will win the title match? Are you predicting Cena loses?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Cena loses. Right now, I don't think Cena necessarily needs to be WWE World Heavyweight Champion, because even though people have been complaining, like, all Randy does is whine and complain, it's okay, he's insecure about where people are viewing him at. So it gives a new wrinkle to his character and how he's developing as an entity, as a champion. Because, normally the champion has to be cocky, confident, backs down at the right times. But right now, Randy's going through like an insecure phase. So if he finally does beat him, he knows what's waiting for him in Brock Lesnar, in Batista, in Punk. All these guys are still gunning for him. How does he handle that going forward?
Randy Orton needs to have all these challenges because of the threat for the one championship now. He needs to be paranoid.
Exactly. So I like that, and I want to see that develop further, especially going forward with his being the Viper. Because, he's supposed to strike at the most opportune moments for himself, but how can you strike if you're so worried about all these people coming for you and where you stand with your bosses?
And with a giant target on your back.
Mm-hmm.
Real quickly, do we have any surprise or bonus matches for the Rumble?
Well, allegedly, we're having the Divas title match if they have time for it, and if it doesn't happen then it's going to happen on Raw. And if it happens on Raw, people aren't going to care about the match, because it'll be all about the fallout of everything else, so the match will be short. If it happens on the pay-per-view, the match will be short. So I say not have the match, just let that feud, if you want it to, build over time.
And maybe culminate at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I don't see a point in having a match I know you want to give AJ another win or shock us and give it to Naomi. But if Naomi beats AJ out of the blue, she's going to get so much flack for it. And she already gets enough flack as it is because people are like, she's unsafe to work with. She goes too fast. She does this. She does that. Blah, blah, blah. If you have her beat AJ, who, even though she's a heel, people still view her as a babyface. I don't know. People are a little crazy. They're going to be like, oh, well, she doesn't deserve to beat her and blah, blah, blah. And this is a reflection of this and that. Just let the feud build until people can be like, okay, I really want to see this match. Because right now, nobody really wants to see the match, besides the fact that they like both the girls in it.
Yeah, I could say that. Other than that, I'm just going to sit back and watch this pay-per-view, watch the Royal Rumble, and, enjoy the company that I'll be around, because this is one of the big four pay-per-views. It's always fun to watch, always entertaining, and always full of surprises.
Do you see any surprise entrants in the Rumble?
The only ones I can come up with are, Kane would be a nice surprise just because he's not actively wrestling and he's not portraying a wrestler right now, and just to try and screw Punk, I would like to see it. I still think Sheamus will be a surprise entrant because we haven't heard from him in a long time.
Because we have 10 open spots left, so.
Yeah, and he hasn't really been updating us on his, his injury. I mean, he has been, but people, I literally had forgotten about him at some point.
So did I.
So, I mean, it's a tough call. I really, that's the thing. I other than those two, I really can't think of any other surprises because, after all, I'd like to be surprised.
Right. Because you look at the roster right now, he's inactive, Dolph still up in the air, Christian's inactive. If you remember that Evan Bourne is employed, he's still there. Do you think 3MB or Los Matadores pop up in the Rumble?
Oh yeah, I see that.
So that'd be a couple spots. Like I said, I want to see Papa Shango or the Godfather. Do you see Booker or because in past years they've had the guys on commentary jump in the Rumble? Do you see any of them?
No, and I hope not. We need them to stay on commentary and commentate the match.
Right. We know Ezekiel Jackson's not going to pop up because people will be like, "Who's this tall black guy that's not Biggie Langston?"
Mark Henry should show up on this pay-per-view at some point. I think he should attack Brock Lesnar after his match, or maybe pop up in the Royal Rumble. That's another one. I have no idea what his status is.
Well, apparently they wanted to keep him off TV for a while because of the injury. Do you see? Okay, looking at the roster right now, we haven't seen David Otunga, Ezekiel Jackson, Evan Bourne, Khali. Who else? Tyson Kidd's probably not going to be in there since Justin Gabriel's not going to be in there. Tensai is working at NXT. Zack Ryder, no one knows where he is. Regal works backstage. Yoshitatsu is MIA. Brodus Clay's not in the Rumble, I don't think. So those are some guys who can fill out some spots, but
they won't. Honestly, let's be honest. They won't. Brodus Clay maybe, but that's probably as far as it goes.
And the Real Americans are in the Rumble too.
Yeah.
So that's 2 other spots. So now it's up to 12.
Yeah, it's a big field, and it's a big night, a big event. So this is where I'm going to cut myself off and say we'll just see what happens. You and I, as along with 28 other people, are entered in the Angry Marks Royal Rumble pool. The winner, which will be the man that number represents them, enters and wins the Rumble. Obviously, if CM Punk were to win the Royal Rumble, whoever got the number 1 spot in the pool would win a prize pack from AngryMarks.com. I'm number 20 in the Rumble. You're number 21. Back-to-back. Co-host of the SmackDown RunDown. It's going to be interesting to see who we've got. But if I predict CM Punk to win the Rumble, then that means I won't be winning the prize pack. You won't be winning the prize pack, but we'll see. That's great thing about the Royal Rumble is you really never know who's going to win. So with that being said, do you have any last words before we close out the show?
It's going to be a good card at the Royal Rumble.
And I can't wait.